It is almost time for the final season of Stranger Things, and I could not be more excited. I have loved this series since it first came out. In fact, I think this might actually be my favorite television show that I have ever watched, ever. And that is saying a lot because I consume a lot of TV. So every time a new season of Stranger Things drops, we always go back and rewatch all the previous seasons. So I'm kind of going back through them again for the umpteenth time. I have at this point like a ranking of the seasons that I like the best, going down to the worst. So I want to rank them and I want to share that with you, get your thoughts. Am I right? Am I missing anything? Let's dive in. In fourth place, we have season 2. This season to me is definitely the weakest of the 4 seasons. While I do love how the Duffer Brothers kind of escalated the tension with a new sort of more terrifying monster, the Mind Flayer, the Upside Down, it still kind of lacks a lot of depth. Like you don't really quite feel like it's leading up to anything. And that is really especially true in this whole side part where she meets 8 and sort of these outcasts. Like that doesn't level up to anything. It doesn't go anywhere. And I think even the Duffer Brothers realized that because they sort of retconned it in season 4 because everybody in the lab ends up dying. So it's like, where did 8 come from or how did she escape? Maybe they end up addressing it in season 5, but I kind of feel like everybody's just kind of forgotten about that little subplot, and it's okay. I'm okay to forget about that and just kind of pretend that it never happened because it didn't sink the second season, but it definitely didn't add anything, and it certainly didn't level up to anything in the way that seasons 1, 3, and 4 do. On a more positive note, I thought the Mind Flayer was super interesting, and obviously that levels up to something because it continues on in season 3 when it attacks Elle. You get more of a sense for what the Mind Flayer is and who's actually controlling the Upside Down, at least in more like season 3, season 4. But the introduction of the Mind Flayer is super critical in season 2, so I'd say that's probably the one part of the season that really levels up to the progression of the seasons. And this was the first time that we're really given the taste of that sort of dramatic irony that we get with each successive season where they introduce new characters and the characters start to find out about this world and they kind of come along with us. And it's so super satisfying to watch them learn all of the mysteries and the stories and the secrets behind Hawkins. More than anything, though, what carried this season was Steve's character arc and the relationship that he developed with Dustin. It felt so totally organic to watch this sort of big brother, little brother relationship unfold and start to see these different sides of Steve's character. Coming in third, season 3. If I had one word to describe this season, it would be aesthetic. Stranger Things had already started, or at least been at the forefront of this sort of 80s revival, but oh my God, did this season hammer it in. This juxtaposition between all the 80s colors and the lights and the neon, and then just stark contrast with the blood and the guts and the horror aspect of the season. And there was a lot. I did think the Russian lab subplot was kind of hokey, but again, I also think it was kind of a fun way to play up some of that Cold War obsession and like the American obsession with Soviet spies and all of that kind of tying into the fall of the Soviet Union around the 80s. I also love the new characters that they brought in, Erica and Robin. I thought the dynamic between Robin and Steve was very entertaining. I did kind of like the little plot twist of Robin being a lesbian, kind of takes it in a little bit of a different direction. But I also kind of wish that she and Steve would have ended up together. So I was a little bit sad about that. Maybe that sets up Steve and Nancy to get together at the end. I don't know how I feel about that because I kind of feel like Nancy doesn't deserve Steve at this point, but that's a whole separate tirade that I just don't need to go on right now. Most importantly, I think season 3 really did start to level up a little bit. You know, the previous seasons kind of ended like all's well that ends well, or does it? And it's a complete sort of ending, but it also has this little tease of like, well, the Upside Down is still there. Anything could happen. But at the end of this season, it really is truly an events-driven ending to go into the next season. You know, we think Hopper is dead and Elle has lost her powers. But here's another little fun Easter egg. At the end of season 3, when it originally premiered, that's when they teased that Hopper wasn't dead, that he was in a Russian prison somewhere. But when they came out with season 4, they kind of scrapped that because they knew everybody could just binge watch it. And so they took it off the end of season 3 and added it to season 4. But when it originally came out, it was part of season 3, so that we weren't left thinking that Hopper was dead for pretty much 2 years until they came out with season 4. Ridiculous amount of time in between seasons, you guys. Coming in at second place, season 1. Most of the things that I love about season 1 are applicable to the series in its entirety, but I'm looking at it through the lens of seeing this for the very first time, because it is the introduction of all of these things to the audience. And I think the first thing is that it's just a completely original story. Now, it is heavily inspired by the Montauk Project, which was this real-life secret government experiment, allegedly. So there's a lot from this series that is drawn off of Montauk. And in fact, I believe when the Duffer Brothers pitched this series idea, the working title was Montauk, and it was going to be set in Montauk, New York. It's not something that's based on a book or a movie or any kind of pre-existing universe the way that Game of Thrones is, or even like the Dark Knight series. It's completely unique and original to the Duffer Brothers' creative efforts. And that goes a long way, especially nowadays when every single movie is some sort of remake or adaptation. Don't even get me started on the Disney live action remakes. Talk about things that do not need to exist. None of those need to exist. And that is why it is so refreshing, especially when you're coming in to season 1 knowing nothing or having, no reference for any of it, to watch it for the very first time. And not only is it a completely original series, but it is also so well done in terms of the pacing, in terms of the characters, in terms of the universe that they've created. It is so unique what they have envisioned in the Upside Down and the way that they bring that universe to life. The series itself is kind of this mix of horror, sci-fi, and the first season especially is a little bit of noir mixed in. And that really speaks to the pacing, because I personally cannot stand noir. I do not like it. I think it drags. The payoff is never as good as intended. And the characters I always find weak or just sort of emotionally detached. I'm not ever invested in them when it comes to a noir style show. Every single episode is so full of action, and it's so full of depth and dialogue and exposition, and it gets your mind going in all these different ways, and you enjoy each episode so much individually that even though the mystery of Will's disappearance is just being stretched through to the very end of the series, you don't notice it. You're not you're anxious to get to the end and to find out what happened to Will, which is why it is such a bingeable series, but this is not a slow burn. Things are happening in every single episode. And even though it takes the mystery a little bit of time to unravel, it's still such a huge payoff at the end because they've delivered this entire universe to you, the viewer. It's amazing. And then on top of that, they put in so many amazing cinematic references. Like the moment where Joyce kind of chops through the wall to get to Will in the Upside Down, and the camera pans out and it's just Joyce having chopped a whole big giant hole in her house. A complete reference to The Shining. And I love that just the average person can sit down and watch it and enjoy it, but it's also made for cinephiles. And that brings us to the best season of Stranger Things, season 4, the introduction of Vecna. I don't know, 10 out of 10, no notes, perfection. And the reason why it is so good, the biggest reason why, is because going into the series, I kind of had low expectations. And I was going in with the question of, where do you even go from here? The first 3 seasons have basically been about just a gate to the dimension being opened and closed. And yeah, there's all these evil things in the Upside Down, and it's a really bad universe, but everything is okay as long as we keep the gate closed. And so you're like, okay, this could just be an endless, ongoing cycle of, this gate's open, now we close it. This gate's open, now we close it. And then I watched the first episode, and then I binged the next 3 after that and stayed up till 3 a.m. in the morning. I don't think I blinked. It was just so compelling. And again, it just kind of came full circle from season 1, where it was completely original. You didn't really know what to expect, and it was just kind of pulling the curtain back behind the Wizard of Oz, or pulling the camera out to a 30,000 foot perspective. And you're like, oh my God, That piece that I saw in season 1 connects over here. That piece from season 2 now connects over here. And mostly all the pieces from like season 3 are now built up into this grand vision that I think the Duffer Brothers had all along. And on top of that, it's leading up to basically a Lord of the Rings level war. The stakes couldn't be higher. The amount of attention to detail in the storytelling all comes together. The other thing I really love about season 4, and this could just be me, but the increasing dramatic irony that happens with each season, it just gets better and better. Because every single season, right, they bring in these new characters, and these new characters eventually discover what's going on. They discover the Upside Down, they get sucked into it, and it just gets more and more satisfying, and you feel more and more like one of the gang each time a new character is introduced and they find out about this whole universe. Like, I think every single person was thinking the same thing when it came to the scene where the gang catches up with Eddie and he is completely freaked out because he just witnessed Vecna, murdering someone. And he's like, they're like, just tell us what happened. Just tell us what happened. Eddie's like, no, you're going to think I'm insane. You're going to think I'm crazy. Eddie, man, you have no idea. You have no idea, sir. Let us tell you. So yeah, season 4 solidly placed Stranger Things for me as one of the best shows of all time. You can disagree, you can fight me in the comments, but I find this show to be completely and utterly rewatchable and compelling no matter how many times I put it back on. The only question now is, will season 5 level up? Will it measure up to the previous 4 seasons, or will it fall flat? Will the entire series fall flat in the series finale? And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to have a Game of Thrones level disappointment here. And I'll tell you why. Because the Duffer Brothers are clearly still heavily invested in this story. I think, it speaks volumes that they're working with Netflix to bring the series finale to a theatrical release. Contrast that with Game of Thrones, where they left freaking Starbucks cups in the shot. That is unacceptable. We can talk about all the different ways that the Stranger Things might end. It is unacceptable to give up and to lose your attention. And I don't think the Duffer Brothers are going to do that. I think they're going to pull through. I'm a little bit anxious for what's to come because I am at this point so attached to the characters, and there are some that I'm willing to let go of. But then you think about the characters that you are willing to see die and how much the other characters love them. I wrestle with these, and it's making me a little bit anxious for season 5, but let's go for it, guys. So those are my thoughts. Did I get it right? Did I miss anything? Should I do another video on the best way to end the series? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.